Hi everyone, I hope you still have a bit of patience for me at this late hour to dive deep into the fascinating world of colorectal surgery. My name is Kávási Sarolta Beáta, and let me present to you my PhD topic, which is surgical aspects of colorectal cancer treatment. A few words about myself. I'm a fifth-year surgery resident in Toldy Ferenc Hospital, and my supervisor is Szabolcs Ábrahám, who unfortunately cannot be here with us today, and my SMS is Anett. My vision is I want to improve the immediate postoperative and quality of life of patients following colorectal cancer surgery with the mission of bringing the latest scientific data to clinical use in this field. For this, I have two specific goals. The first one is comparing the different types of anastomosis following total mesorectal excision, and the second one is comparing the extralevator to conventional abdominoperennial excision. So let's talk about my first project, which is titled End-to-End Anastomosis Provides Similar Quality of Life Compared with Other Reconstructive Techniques 6 months following total mesorectal excision. It is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. So a few words about the background. We all know that worldwide there's an estimated 1.8 million people diagnosed with colorectal cancer each year, from which more than 700,000 cases are rectal cancer cases only. Unfortunately, Hungary, with the highest incidence in the world, reports around 10,000 cases per year of colorectal cancer. Anastomotic leakage, which is the most severe postoperative morbidity, is reported to be around 13% following surgery and can increase up to 20% beyond 30 days postoperatively. Up to 90% of the patients undergoing total mesorectal excision will have low anterior resection syndrome, which will impair in the long term their quality of life. At this point, there is no clear consensus on which type of anastomosis is safer for a surgeon to perform. Thus, the aim of our study is to investigate which type of anastomosis is the best in terms of safety and quality of life, and to assess if end-to-end anastomosis is as safe as the other types of anastomosis. For this, we have the clinical question of does end-to-end anastomosis show any difference in terms of postoperative morbidity and quality of life compared to other types of anastomosis? For this, we have the PICO framework, where P is patients following total mesorectal excision. We are comparing end-to-end anastomosis to side-to-end colonic J-pouch and transverse coloplasty, and here you can see our outcomes. We hypothesize that end-to-end anastomosis is as good as the other types of anastomosis. We have performed our systematic search on the 8th of November last year in the 3 major databases, and as you can see, after a careful selection, we have narrowed it down to 29 full-text eligible randomized controlled trials. So let's talk about the most important results so far. First of all, anastomotic leakage. This plot represents the rate of anastomotic leakage following end-to-end compared to colonic J-pouch. This outcome is very important to us surgeons because it is the most serious postoperative comorbidity, and actually it is the most expensive one to treat also. For this, we have used the measure of effect of risk ratio, which can be interpreted in the following way. If the risk ratio is equal to 1, then there's no difference between the 2 studied arms. If the risk ratio is smaller than 1, then there's a higher chance of anastomotic leakage in the colonic J-pouch group. If the risk ratio is higher than 1, then there's higher risk of anastomotic leakage in the end-to-end group. As you can see, we have included 15 randomized controlled trials in this study, and our heterogeneity is really low, 0%, most probably due to the strict inclusion and exclusion criteria, because the total mesorectal excision is a standardized surgical procedure that is done on a specific subset of the population. As you can see, our risk ratio in this case was 1.03, meaning that the risk of developing anastomotic leakage following end-to-end anastomosis is similar as after colonic J-pouch. Similarly, we have compared end-to-end anastomosis to side-to-end anastomosis, and we got similar results. The risk ratio of 1.19, meaning that the risk of developing anastomotic leakage following end-to-end is comparable to the side-to-end group. Patients following total mesorectal excision have a lot of different dysfunctions, intestinal, sexual, and also urinary dysfunctions. Thus, there's a new shift of perspective in the world of surgery. We are focusing mainly on the quality of life of our patients following surgery. That's why this outcome is very important to us. Because of the varied questionnaires used to assess this outcome, we have used a measure of effect of standardized mean difference, which can be interpreted in the following way. If the standardized mean difference equals 0, then the difference between the 2 studied arms, there's no difference actually between the 2 studied arms. If the standardized mean difference is smaller than 0, then there's a higher quality of life in the colonic J pouch or the side to end later on. And if the standardized mean difference is higher than 0, then there's higher quality of life in the end-to-end group. As you can see, we have evaluated in more time points our patients, but the actual statistical analysis was done only at 6 and 12 months from 4 randomized controlled trials. The standardized mean difference at 6 months was minus 0.22 and at 12 months minus 0.24. Both of these results are statistically non-significant. Similarly, we have compared end-to-end to side-to-end, and the statistical analysis was done from 3 randomized controlled trials only at the 6-month time point, and the standardized mean difference was minus 0.04, meaning that at 6 months following total mesorectal excision, the quality of life of patients following end-to-end is similar compared to side-to-end anastomosis. So what is the clinical implication of all of these results? Well, actually, the colonic J pouch and side-to-end anastomosis both are time-consuming, technically challenging, and most of the times requiring more surgical staples. So without any additional benefit, considering the cost analysis also, end-to-end is as safe and predictable and good option as the others. So what are the strengths of our meta-analysis? Well, actually, we have, of course, followed a strict methodology, but it is the first quantitative analysis on quality of life of patients following total mesorectal excision. The limitation is the lacking data on long-term follow-up and, of course, the varied quality of life questionnaires. So in conclusion, we can say that there's no difference in short-term postoperative morbidity, and at 6 months, quality of life after end-to-end anastomosis is similar to colonic J pouch or side-to-end. The implication for research would be we need cost-effectiveness evaluations, because I have not found any of these, to finally set this debate to rest. So this is the status of my manuscript. We have actually sent out the manuscript today for internal review, and I've also sent my abstract to UEGW and the ASCP conferences. Let's talk a few words about my second project, which is comparing surgical and oncological outcomes of extra levator to conventional abdominoperineal excision for low rectal cancer. As we all know, for advanced low rectal cancer, abdominoperineal excision is one of the standard surgical procedures, but of course it has its downfall, which is the high risk of local recurrence. For this, Holm et al. In 2007 proposed the ELAP, which is the concept of extra levator abdominoperineal excision, where they not only remove the rectum and mesorectum, but also the surrounding levator muscles, thus hoping better oncological outcome. Of course, this has its downside also with the increased perineal wound healing and the perineal hernia, which by some studies can go up to 60%. Thus, the aim of our study is to compare the morbidity and long-term effects of ELAP to APE. We have the clinical question, is ELAP associated with increased overall survival rate and higher morbidity compared to APE in patients with advanced low rectum cancer? We have the PICO framework, where P is the adults with advanced low rectum cancer. We are comparing ELAP to APE, and we have the following outcomes, the most important ones being the overall survival, the disease-free survival, and local recurrence-free survival. We hypothesize that ELAP is associated with an increased survival time, but also higher morbidity compared to APE. And of course, our clinical implication is that we want to increase the overall survival of our patients. The systematic search has been done on 14th of April this year, and we are still working on this selection. We are currently at the title and abstract phase. So in summary, these are my two topics. First one, comparing the different types of anastomosis following total mesorectal excision. Hopefully we will submit it end of this month or beginning of next month. And my second project hopefully will be done by September. Thank you for your attention, and I want to finish with my favorite quote, which is, "It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, it is the one most adaptable to change."
My question relates to your first topic's background, and you mentioned that Hungary has very sad statistics regarding colorectal cancers, and I would like to ask how many countries were compared in this, so which result it is?
Oh, it is the Globocan, which it's actually, they are taking the previous data and making an assumption, but At this point, as I know, there's no clear data in Hungary because there's no study that assessed long-term. Actually, will be our third project, hopefully. But based on this Globocom prediction, Hungary is the worst in the whole world, followed by Slovakia, if I'm not mistaken. So, yes.
So if I understand well, end-to-end anastomosis seems to be the simplest
Yes.
and the best.
Yes.
Why surgeons do other operations then?
Excuse me, I don't understand that.
Why surgeons do other types of operations then?
Well, end-to-end was the first type of anastomosis, and they have found a lot of intestinal function problems. A lot of patients had diarrhea, for example, following surgery. So they hypothesized that because we excise the rectum, which is the reservoir, then maybe if we make a reservoir, they might not have diarrhea or they might not have bowel dysfunction. But the problem is that even though the bowel dysfunction seems to be less with colonic J pouch, on the other hand, has other downsides. So actually just assessing the intestinal function might not be enough because we have to check for all the other dysfunctions that come with this surgery, which is urinary and sexual. So yes, end-to-end, actually, we have also another plot, but because of time restriction, we didn't present it for bowel movement. And yes, end-to-end following, like after 6 months, end-to-end does have a slight impairment of bowel function, but after 1 year following surgery, it's statistically non-significant.
So that is data convincing all of us that end-to-end anastomosis is the way forward in this situation. Do you expect that the other types of operations will fade away from practice and end-to-end anastomosis is going to be the only or the most important or the most used operation type?
I'm not sure because surgeons love to do what they know best and what they think is best. So I think everyone will continue doing what they like. But actually in Hungary and...
Even without convincing data?
Well, actually, in Hungary, as I know, most people do end-to-end anastomosis. So the question here, I think, is more, is end-to-end or side-to-end better? Because colonic J pouch, as I know, in Hungary, we don't really do it. But I am hoping that this is convincing enough for surgeons to stick to end-to-end, because if the predictions are true and the colorectal cancer will be more and more, then we need time-efficient surgeries. So I hope it's convincing.